Hey everyone, welcome to, I guess, a new series on the channel where I'm going to be ranking every single character from each of the Ace Attorney games. There are 10, technically 11 games, and I think that they all have such a rich amount of character writing that it's only fair to really rank them on a tier list. Now, if you're wondering about the other people in the group, I think that I'll probably request to do it live with some of them. So this is my own personal tier list. Maybe the others will have different opinions, but I'm here to share mine. So for the first episode of this new series, I guess we're gonna do the investigation series, just because it's like, I guess it's stereotypical to start with the trilogy. So let's start with the investigations duology first, because I think that it has the greatest disconnect with quality between any of the mini franchises. And I'm talking about the investigations duology, where the first one is really crap, and I think, in my opinion, it's my least favorite game. It's not like an awful game, but like it's a crap Ace Attorney game. It's like 4 out of 10. Whereas the second game, which is the opposite of what Jill Apocalypse may say, is one of my favorites. I wouldn't say it's my outright favorite, but it's definitely up there. I think that it has so many things going for it. So it's just such a weird disconnect that you have such a meh game followed by such an amazing game. I guess the Great Ace Attorney duology kind of has that as well, but at least the first Great Ace Attorney game is kind of retroactively good when you see the second game. When you play the second game, you're like, oh, that's why that was like that. That's why that was cut off. It's really just one long game. Whereas the Investigations duology, it's like the first half is just not good, and the second half is amazing. So, yeah, we're gonna rank each of the characters little by little. We're gonna save the main, I guess, 5 for for later. We'll save them for the end. But yeah, let's do the side characters. And right off the bat, I think that the side characters in this game are pretty not great. I think that there are one or two that save them from being the outright worst. I think Apollo Justice, the game, has the worst side characters. So many of them are so unmemorable, or so like bland, or so just like repetitive in one note. But at least here, these characters are, often memorable for the wrong reasons, and I think that's at least better than just completely forgettable or whatever. Excuse me. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start off with Maggie here, and I think Maggie, right off the bat, is probably gonna go in D tier. And I know that's weird, because Maggie is like that generic nice girl character, and she has very fun interactions with Gumshoe and the I Hate Weenies joke, and, but, she has no chemistry with any of the characters in this game. And I'm only gonna be playing with the iterations of the characters in this game. Now, Maggie is really interesting because she has no chemistry with Gumshoe. Unlike the Recipe for Turnabout case in Trials and Tribulations, the one with the Fury of Tigre, Maggie and Gumshoe just have, like, almost nothing to do. Like, yeah, it's like, oh, we're kind of cute together, and that's fine, but she's just kind of there, the bad luck girl. Nothing really comes of it. She gets, blamed a little bit by Mr. Jacques Portsman for a few for a few minutes, but that's about it. She really is a klutz. I think she gets fired at the end as well. So it's like, oh my gosh, Maggie. Why? She always gets manipulated, and she doesn't really have any dynamics with any of the characters. Like, she's interacted with Phoenix, Edgeworth, Gumshoe, and Maya, but I fail to remember any of that. Like any of that, especially in this case, right? I don't know, it's nice to see her, but the fact that this is her last appearance in the series, and it's just so, like, blech, and it's one of the many unnecessary cameos, I feel like, in this game, where they needed to sprinkle in, hey, remember these guys? And Maggie's, like, the first of that, and it's just pointless, I feel. Other than to just, like, be like, hey, remember this character? But in a way, it really undermines the first case. Now, obviously, we do see Jacques Sportsman in the intro of the case. Like, we can see him holding the gun, so we know it's obviously him. But I don't like how there are only 4 characters in this first case. We only have Edgeworth, who's the protagonist, Gumshoe, who's obviously the assistant, Maggie, who's like a returning character that we know is innocent, and then the bad guy. So it's like, come on. It's like we have one guy. Now, this guy itself, I would also put him in D tier. I don't think he's that good either. I think that they, later on in the game, they make him a bit more relevant. It's like, oh, he's part of the smuggling ring and all that, but, like, that doesn't make him an interesting character. Like, he's just part of the grander scheme of things. He also gets, like, I think 7 or 8 testimonies, which you do not need that many for a character that we see commit the murder. Like, we see him commit the murder in the opening of the game, and it's a tutorial. It should be done in less than an hour, but because you get 8 testimonies, this can drag on for like almost 2 or 3 hours, which I think is so unnecessary, because this case is almost nothing going on for it. Like, it's nice to see Edgeworth and Gumshoe, and I guess Maggie, all in like these new sprites and walking around and stuff, but like, I don't know, this guy, like, he lasts a lot longer than he needs to. If he was just like, kind of like a Frank Saw It, he just appears, he's the bad guy, and then you take him down in like 2 or 3 testimonies, then that would be perfect. But because it takes so long for no real reason, I don't know. I don't have a lot of positive things to say about Jacques Portsman, especially because you need to mispronounce his name to get the joke. Like, his name, it's not Jacques Portsman, it's Jacques Portsman. So if you want to get the sportsman, you genuinely have to go out of your way to mispronounce the name. I don't really have anything nice to say about Jacques Portsman. I think he's forgettable. It's just like this game has such forgettable culprits. It's really sad. Next up we have ZINC LEBLANC, and I think that he is kind of uncomfortable. He can be a bit of an uncomfortable stereotype. But like other than that, he's not much. Like, he's really not much. He's there for like maybe 20 minutes, and like I appreciate that he's a red herring, but he doesn't really go anywhere. He's just kind of annoying, Virginian guy, I guess. And like the scene where he falls on the statue or whatever is hilarious. But like he has very little to do other than to appear menacing so that you don't know who the culprit is, which I do appreciate. I do appreciate that they did that. But like this case is just so like short and sweet that it's like, I don't know. I feel like because it's so short, they could have made him a bit more of a bigger character. And you know, I know this is Yamazaki's first Ace Attorney game out of the 4 he did, so it's his weakest in terms of character writing and mystery writing. So I can kind of understand why there's so many just bleh characters. But I think this guy in particular, I'm trying to think where I would rank him. I think I would rank him underneath Maggie and Jacques Portsman, because at least we get to have a half-decent idea of who they are, whereas ZINC LEBLANC we get like a quarter-decent idea of who he is. I wouldn't put him in F just because I think that he serves his red herring purpose fine. It's just I wish we got a little bit more. He's annoying, but I wish we got a little bit more, just so that we could flesh him out a little bit, you know? So he's not completely one note. Next we have RHODA TENEIRO, who I think is okay, but it's bizarre that they only added her for one case. I think that the dynamic she has with Edgeworth, where she like arrests him, and then, you know, they work together, could have been used a little more, but they just didn't go anything with that. Like, it was just one note, and I mean, like, I guess, yeah, you could suspect her, which is kind of what they do with CAMMY, where CAMMY also helps you out, but she's the actual culprit. So that's interesting to have like this kind of semi-assistant actually be the bad guy. RHODA, on the other hand, is like, I feel like halfway through the case you kind of like, okay, it's either CAMMY or LEBLANC, and it's probably not RHODA. I do appreciate that these three, ZINC LEBLANC, RHODA TENEIRO, and CAMMY MEELE, are all like in contention of being the murderer, but at the same time, we're not given a whole lot to work with RHODA, other than she's like just generally kind of nice, and she learns to accept Edgeworth, and she has really ugly suitcases. I think that they could have used this case a lot better. Like, Turnabout Airlines is already the most filler case in a game that I would argue is the most filler game. So it's like, you know, it's just a lot of filler. You could have had, and I know this is kind of weird because you'd have to rewrite some things, but you could have had Kay in the Turnabout Airlines game just so that you get a bit more screen time with her. And, you know, as much as I like Franziska, you could probably get rid of Franziska in this case and replace her with Lank, so now at least you develop the main rival and the main assistant of this game instead of saving them for the third case in the game, which is bizarre, which is a very bizarre choice, by the way, that they save these big characters for the third case of the game, and since the fourth case is a flashback, you really only have them for, you know, in their present forms for the third case and the fifth case. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that RHODA just feels like kind of an artifact where they could have easily replaced her with the actual assistant of the game. And like, she's nice, she gets the job done, and you know, it's nice to have a token like good character out of the new cast, out of these three. But I mean, I don't know. There's not a lot to her. I'm gonna put her in C. She's okay. She's not like, you know, offensive or anything, but like, you know, I wish they went a few more places with her. Next up, we have CAMMY MEELE, and I think CAMMY is okay as a villain. I think that, you know, out of the first, like, you know, pretty much out of the entire game, she's probably the second best villain, which isn't saying a lot. And yeah, that's not saying a lot to her either, because she's just kind of, like, her motivations are okay. She's part of the smuggling ring. I think that's the problem, is that these people don't have a whole lot of stake in what they do. It's all part of the smuggling ring, which, like, we don't really get a whole lot of insight on. Like, Franziska gets insight on, and Lang gets insight on, but, I mean, the smuggling ring itself is just kind of, like, a plot point. So, like, her motivations are just like, oh, you know, the guy is stealing something, Byakuya is stealing something, so she has to kill him or something. I don't even remember. Maybe I should have done a little more research, but I think CAMMY is okay. I would put her as the highest of the Turnabout Airline new characters, just because the fact that she is the villain can make things a bit more fun, and, you know, she's sleepy, but she's not, and she blows bubbles. Like, that could be a nice, like, you know, reverse Uno plot twist, but it's like, I don't know. Turnabout Airlines is short and sweet, so I can't be too mad at it at the end of the day. I can't be too pissy about it. And I think it is kind of by default the second best case in the game. But I'm gonna put CAMMY above RHODA. I'm gonna put her in B tier actually. I think she's okay for what it's worth. Now I don't know about you guys, but for me, if a case is short and sweet, I'm a little less inclined to be mad at it. Like, I know people hate the Lost Turnabout, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what, you can finish it in less than 2 hours, it's whatever. And this case is, like, similarly kind of short, so I can't be too angry at it, but believe me, there's a case later down the line that I will be very upset over because of its length. So yeah, I'm gonna put CAMMY in B just because, you know, I think that there is a lot of, there's the seeds planted for a good villain. We don't get a whole lot, but I mean, in this game, any seeds will go a long way. So, next up we have Lance, no, crap, what's his name? ERNEST AMANO, and I'm gonna put him in F. I think he's a failure of a character. I think he's awful. I think that the only thing that I remember of him is that he goes, now, and it also started this running joke with my friends, where all the Japanese-looking characters just get cowboy voices. He has the Doug Dimmadome voice in particular. But that's not because of the game, that's because of my friends. You know, we managed to make him a little bit more funny, which is very marginal, by the way. It's just a marginal him. Like, that would have put him in E, but, you know, we're not ranking my friends' enjoyment or, you know, how funny we made them. We're putting them in terms of how I enjoy them. And, you know, this guy, he's super underdeveloped, considering the fact that he has a, and you might not even remember this, but he has a dynamic with Manfred von Karma. He is, you know, I think one of the higher-ups in the smuggling ring. I'm pretty sure that he's done a lot of sketchy things. He's the guy that blackmails Edgeworth with the money in the suitcase, makes him go to the haunted house, and he does have a bit of power, but he's just so forgettable. He's such a whatever character. It's like, who cares? At the end of the day, it's like, considering the fact that this is one of the guys that's like pulling all the strings, like he gets brought up in case 4 and 5 in a context that's like, ooh, be careful, he's the big bad, but it's like we take him down in case 3 and he's just so meh in that case, and it's like a goofy Blue Badger case anyway. It's like there's no real tension or fear or any reason to care about this guy, and it's like, I don't know, he's so nothing considering the fact that that archetype is like, ooh, he's a mastermind pulling the strings behind the scenes, but the fact that you take him down so relatively early in the game and in such a, you know, such a meh kind of way, and he's not even the main murderer of the game. He's just the he's just kind of a jerk who participates in a bit of blackmail, right? He's not even the main murderer, which you know, maybe can make you go like, okay, it's not as satisfying as it could have been if he was the main murderer. Then he would have more serious charges. So I don't know. He's a really sketchy guy, and I think that considering that he was supposed to be, that they were writing for such a dangerous, I don't know, like gangster type, they really dropped the ball there. Next up we have Lance AMANO, and I'm gonna put him even lower than his dad, because I think that Lance is the murderer in the case. He kind of Big Lebowski's himself. He kidnaps himself, and extorts his own dad. It's just like, you could have just talked to him, you know. I like Lance is so, or Ernest is so willing to excuse his son, so you could have just asked him, hey, give me money, and he'd be like, yeah, I'll give you money, don't worry about it, son. But he doesn't do that. You know, he just kidnaps himself. He makes his girlfriend kill her dad or something, or makes his girlfriend thinks that she killed his dad or her dad, and then he kills the dad in the first place, which by the way is his dad's butler. So it's like, why? What's the point? What is the point? And he's just so whiny and so pathetic, and so, like, he's such a punchable character. I mean, the one saving grace, and again, this is not because of the game, this is because of my friends, is that we gave him the Pinocchio voice. So he's like, Father, when can I leave to be on my own? Which, like, did make a few jokes land, but at the same time, it's like, he's the worst culprit in the series. He's just so pathetic and unforgettable. Not unforgettable, sorry. He's so forgettable and pathetic, and just, like, you don't even feel a sense of, like, wow, we did it. It's just like, oh yeah, he's the sad kid, you know. He doesn't even feel, like, I feel like most of the cases, you know, when you think of the case, you think of the villain of the case. Like, when I think of the Blue Badger case, I don't think of him as the culprit. Like, all I think of is the pointless cameos and the fact that there's a Blue Badger jump scare and the Haunted Mansion, all that stuff, and that we get to see Kay and Lang. Like, I think if I were to list all the things I remember about this case, Lance would be, like, in the bottom, you know, in the bottom, like, 5 things, despite being the perpetrator of the crime. So yeah. And here we have Lauren POUPS. Wait, what? Where is she? Where's Lauren POUPS? She's not even on this list. There she is. Why is she here? Lauren POUPS, who is the third and final new character of this case, and she is, I think she's supposed to be the, like, defendant. You're supposed to kind of defend her, but it just falls flat because you don't care about her. She's so one note. She's such a yandere tsundere, but it's not cute and it doesn't go anywhere, and you don't care about her. So it's like, what's the point? Like, I guess she's a decent red herring, but she's so like, I mean, she's so like cutesy that it doesn't even come across as like she can even be the culprit. Like, you can. Like, you get such sus vibes from Lance and Ernest Amano that it's like, okay, she's not a effective red herring. And, like, yeah, there have been, like, the cutesy kind of girls in the past, like Dahlia Hawthorne, for example, who are like, oh, yeah, they're actually the bad guy. But I think that she, in particular, is the most, like, disconnected in terms of the author's intent, where they wanted to make her this sympathetic character that you probably care for and you want to help, when in reality, no one really cares about her. Like she's... I honestly think she might be the most forgettable character in this entire franchise, just because, like, she, at least with the bad guys, they are laughably bad, but she's, like, a laughably, you know, the cognitive dissonance between how important the writers want her to be versus how she actually is just laughable, you know? So I don't know, like, like, none of these characters are good. Like, all three of these characters are just blech. I think the Blue Badger case is not the worst, because at least you have the funny Blue Badger and the pointless cameos, and you do get introduced to Kay and Lang, but it's like, what was the point? What was the point? you could have made it a lot better. Like, Kay and Lang could have been introduced in any other case. Like, please just introduce them in a way better case. Like, it's so annoying that if I want to show my friends Investigations 2, I have to make them stomach this, like, less than stellar game. Next up we have, some returning characters. So let's actually put the returning characters together. We have Mike Meekins, who he shows up in the costume, he gets accused, and then he gets, like, off the hook off screen. Like, his cameo is so pointless. I would have at least, if they had, like, a new character, at the very least, maybe you could have had a red herring, which, like, I don't think this case needed a red herring. Like, we already have Lauren, who already kind of fails, but maybe you could have had a second red herring. But because, you know, you needed to bring, like, 3 returning characters, it's just, this case just feels so, like, nothing. And I think, like, as much as I love having returning characters, it kind of unnecessarily fills in what could have been red herrings, right? It could have been, oh, this character, oh, I don't know, maybe they're actually the secret bad guy, right? So by bringing Emma, Mike Meekins, and Wendy Oldbag, it's like, it fills up a lot of spots, right? Where it's like, okay, it kind of has to be the dad. Like, who else could kidnap the son other than the son himself and maybe the dad, right? Anyway, Mike Meekins, I think, is another one of the pointless... Like, I like seeing him here. It's like, it's nice, because it's like, hey, that's a callback to the trilogy, so we can, like, give these characters their old voices again. That's cute. But it's like, what's the point? What's the grander scheme of bringing back this guy? And it's like, he just yells. Like, that's all he does. He just yells. Like, there's barely a reference to his previous appearance. And it's just like, you might as well just make him a new guy. I'm gonna put him in E, because at least, like, you know, I'm gonna put him I'm gonna put him below ZINC-LEBLANC, because at least ZINC-LEBLANC can be a red herring. I'm gonna put him down here just because it's like, what's the point? Emma is a character that I think is amazing, but she does nothing in this case. She shows up to do some, like, science stuff, and then she disappears. And, like, it's a nice, like, 5-minute cameo, but it goes nowhere. You bring in such an important, you know, and awesome character for the previous game. And I remember that Apollo Justice actually came out before Investigation, so, I mean, her iteration in Apollo Justice is also in recent memory. So it's nice to see her back as her younger self, but it's like, what's the point? Like, there's literally no point in her being here. Like, it's I think that out of all the cameos, at least Meekins has some part of the plot. Like, Emma could be replaced by just the forensics guy, and it wouldn't have made a difference. So, like, it hurts me to put Emma, like, I'm gonna put Emma above ZINC-LEBLANC and Mike Meekins, because at least Emma, you know, at least you get the feeling of, hey, I remember that character for the 5 minutes she shows up, because at least she is, like, a character that people do like, compared to OLDBAG and Meekins, who are just kind of annoying on purpose. Emma is a character that you obviously sympathize with because of the events of Rise from the Ashes, right? Next up we have Wendy Oldbag, and I think Wendy Oldbag's not awful. I think that the fact that she appears twice, she appears in the Blue Badger case, and then she appears in the final case, is kind of redundant. You didn't need to have both of them. I like the gimmick that, like, she always accuses the wrong person because they're wearing, like, a mask or a costume or something. Like, that's kind of funny. And then, you know, the thing with Edgeworth is, it's slightly funny, I guess. I don't really have anything bad to say because I know that she's supposed to be kind of this like annoying on purpose character who appears out of nowhere. And like, you know, unlike these characters where I feel like they were supposed to be written more competently and more, you know, as like a genuine threat than they actually appear as, I think Wendy Oldbag fills her job correctly. So it's like I don't want to rank her high, but it's like just because she has a role and she fills it makes me, you know, a bit more forgiving, right? Oh man. And like at the end, I just remember now in the final case, she actually is slightly important. I think she has like an undershirt. She has like a little subplot with Larry, and she does help take down the bad guy. And you know, spoiler alert: this is the last time we see her in the series. So I mean, I guess it's a decent farewell. It's not great, but I mean, she does help out at the end of the day. She helps out Edgeworth if anything. So I mean, she's always helpful, but in a very annoying way. I don't know. I'm thinking too much for Wendy Oldbag. I'm gonna put her in high D tier, and like, you know, I might get shat on for that opinion, but at least she does things, right? At least we get very small redemptive, I wouldn't even say arc, like a redemptive moment, and yeah, no, I don't know, dude, I don't know. Next up we have Sheena. I'm gonna rank Sheena and Callisto U separately, even though they're the same character. I think Sheena is, you know, when she is Sheena, she doesn't say much. She just like pulls out the scrolls for Lang, and it's kind of funny, I guess. It's not much of anything. It's not much of anything, but it's like, I don't know. There's a mystery involved. It's like, who is this character? Are they just not gonna do anything? Is this just a gimmick? Are you just gonna be Lang's like right-hand woman? I'm gonna put it in C, just because like, you know, it's hard. Because, like, I'm only ranking Sheena in the third case, by the way. Like, Sheena in the fifth case will go to Callisto Youth. But, I mean, considering how bad some of the characters are in the third case, it's nice to have someone who's just there, right? And obviously it sparks a bit of mystery, like, who is this character, as I said. Maybe not above RHODA, but, I mean, yeah, she's okay. She doesn't do much, and, yeah, she'll get here. Manfred von Karma. Now, obviously, they couldn't do much with him because they don't want to spoil the first game for new players, and obviously, you know, yeah, they just don't want to spoil the first game, and they can't make him too villainous because, like, we know we're not going to take him down in this game. You know, Phoenix is going to do that in the first game of the trilogy. And, like, in this game, in the first game, he's actually, like, kind of helpful. No, I wouldn't say helpful, but he's, like, supportive of Edgeworth and his daughter a little bit. Like, I know he's kind of mean to FRANZISKA, but for the most part, he's, like, kind of the support character, which is nice. And, like, it doesn't feel as pointless, because it does help make you realize where Edgeworth and FRANZISKA are at the point in their careers. The problem is, this game really isn't about Edgeworth. So, even though it does provide context, it doesn't really go anywhere, because Edgeworth in the flashback case is not the bratty, mean prosecutor that he should have been. Like, he's kind of heroic. He shouldn't be heroic at this point in his life. He should be a jerk. So, like, I like having Manfred von Karma as, like, to provide context for the time frame, but at the same time, it's like, that's all it does. It just provides context. It doesn't provide any thematic purpose or any development in any arc. It's just like, yeah, this is my mentor at the moment because we're in the past. And maybe it'll justify why, you know, the Edgeworth-FRANZISKA relationship for any newcomers. But, you know, I feel like they do it a lot better in the second game. But for this game, it's like, he's okay. It's like, again, it's another pointless cameo. And, like, yeah, he is still Manfred. He's like, it's nice to see him in a slightly more supportive role. Even though he's a bad person, it's like, it's interesting to see how Edgeworth viewed him at this point in time, right? Where he's just kind of his mentor, pseudo-father, even. I'll put him in high C. Like, he doesn't do anything. Well, and that's because, like, you know, by the present-day events, he's in jail or dead, so he can't really do anything. But for his role in the flashback case, I'll give him a C. He's a nice person to see, just because he's also just a big character, like Emma, where it's like, oh yeah, that's the guy. Oh my God, he's here. He's in this game. That's amazing. But, I mean, you know, the novelty wears off when he doesn't really do much. The judge is amazing. Getting to see him out of court and getting to cross-examine him is kind of hilarious, especially because he's like, what, he was in the bathroom and he was peeing and then he heard a balloon and he thought it was a gunshot or whatever, which is just so funny, and it's such a what the heck moment. I never thought we'd do this. I never thought we'd cross-examine the judge of all people. So it's nice to see him outside the usual context, and I know that it's mostly a joke, but it does add a lot. I feel like, you know, it's not the main reason people like that fourth case, the flashback case, but it's just like, oh yeah, he's here. That's amazing. It's nice little, you know, cherry on top, I guess, to have to cross-examine him just to see him is just like, oh man, I remember the trilogy. I'm not a big fan of when they have to go out of their way to be like, hey, remember that? But I think it's very hard to mess up the judge, I feel. And like, yeah, he's a little stupider than usual. He's not a very smart guy, but he's a lot more stupid in this game. But you know, it's very hard to mess him. I'm gonna put him in B tier. I'm gonna put him underneath CAMMY because, like, again, he has a small role, but he's very memorable. And granted, it's a bit of cheating because like we know who he is beforehand. But yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say. He's a nice presence. It's nice to see him. CALISTO U, I feel like, is someone that I have mixed opinions on, and I genuinely think that she might be, you know, I've mixed opinions, but I think she might be the best character of this game. Just because it's nice to have this twist villain who isn't, okay, maybe twist villain's the wrong word to say, but you have this flashback case where she's the villain, and then you're like, oh, in the present, she's actually Sheena in disguise, which I thought was extremely obvious, but some people, I feel like, you know, it takes a little while for it to click. That being said, it's just nice to have someone who's so thematically tied with the main assistant, with Faraday, because, you know, CALISTO U, if that even is her real name, killed Kei's dad, is part of the Yatagarasu with Kei's dad and Detective Bad, and, you know, it's nice to have a villain who has relatively strong ties to the matter, and who's also so closely attached with the rival of the game, and I think that having personal stakes, while it can get old, and I feel like it does get old by the time of the sequel trilogy, it just adds a lot in a game where it's relatively just a bunch of unrelated people, right, just solving mysteries that are just kind of fillery. It's nice to have that connective tissue where there are emotional stakes. And I think that she is genuinely kind of scary. Like, she does whip out a gun at one point in the courtroom. You usually don't do that. And even though she isn't the murderer, it's just like to know that she's like this shadowy vigilante kind of a person makes her really cool. And yeah, I mean, the fact that we don't even know her real name and we don't even know her backstory, like, that in itself can be kind of a detriment. But I think that there's enough, like, you know, spookiness because we do get to know her, but our interactions are recontextualized when we know her true nature. It's really enriching, I guess. And maybe, you know, there's some characters that fit what she does, but would probably be ranked low because they don't do it nearly as good as with CALISTO U. And one part of me is like, maybe she's only good because it's like finally you get a hint of flavor in these games. Like, it's not a whole lot. It's like, you know, I'd give it like maybe 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. But it's still, like, way better than everything we've had so far. Like, you know, this entire list has been, like, B tier to F tier, so it's like, to have someone actually be part of the story goes a long way, I feel. And yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like being devoid of so many of interesting side characters, and even villains, is like, she's such a breath of fresh air, and I think she is probably the best part of the game. The best character, the best non-main character of the game. Next up, we have Detective Bad, and I think Detective Bad is okay. At first, I had him pretty high up, because I think he's cool. This old grizzled detective who's actually the third member of the Yatagarasu, and, you know, Kei's dad, CALISTO U, and him, they all, like, clean up the crimes and whatnot, and he can be kind of a fatherly figure to Gumshoe. He's like this, you know, he's kind of like Batman, basically, where, you know, he's this detective, but he has the secret identity. It's pretty cool. I think that he's not nearly as relevant as people think he is, just because he has such a cool design and a cool theme, that it's, like, people may think he has a bigger role than he actually does. But having this, like, token good guy, I'd say, to really contrast CALISTO U, especially because his name is Bad. You'd think maybe he's, like, the bad guy, but he's actually, like, a pretty solid guy. He goes to jail. He's very honorable. It's like, I don't know why the side characters in this game are so meh, and then they give, like, 2 really standout ones. Obviously, we can't bring CALISTO U back because she's in jail, but at least with Detective Bad, he does get a small part in the next game. So I guess they figured, yeah, this is probably our best side character of the first game. Let's bring him back. Like, none of the other side characters are brought back to the sequel except for Bad. And I think it's because he has a very, like, pretty solid arc. It's not... you know what? I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna put him in S tier. I know I said that it's like... It's not as involved as you would think. Like, you know, in hindsight. Like, you look back and it's not a whole lot. But it does go a long way in this game. Like, having such a long drought of any meaningful characters, and just to have this guy, it's like, it's not a lot, but it goes a long way. So, just in the context of the game, Callisto U and Detective Bad both get S tier, and the reason why he's below Callisto U is because Callisto U is such a shock and like, you know, such a kooky character, I guess. And our laugh, oh my gosh, that's insane. It's the one part of the game that I would say they do well. That stretch from the fourth case, the beginning of the fourth case, to halfway in the fifth case is the best part, and it is because of these two. Next up, we have COLIAS PALEANO, who, he is a very small presence in the final case. Considering he's one of the only two new characters we get in the fifth case, he has such a small presence. He has almost nothing to do with the murder. He's just a nice guy. And I think in the Ace Attorney universe, that goes a long way. He looks sketchy. He's supposed to be this another red herring. So it's either, okay, so in your head, you're like, okay, the leader is either the COLIAS PALEANO or QUERCUS ALBA. I don't know which one it is. And, you know, you later find out it is QUERCUS ALBA. But I think just because you have a few seeds of, like, maybe he's sus, it's okay, but it doesn't go anywhere. Like, I feel like by the 40% mark of the final case, you're like, okay, it's probably not this guy. He's too nice, and the other guy is a lot more sketchy, and there's a lot more sketchy stuff surrounding the other guy. But, you know, for keeping a small mystery in the first, like, third of the case, I can't be too mad at him. And yeah, you know, he's just a stand-up guy. He's one of the rare, just nice people with no ulterior motives. He just wants to give you coupons. You know, it's weird, because he's I don't think he's that memorable, but I'm gonna put him in B tier just because he's not crap. I think he doesn't have a whole lot of purpose other than to just be nice. I don't even think you really even cross-examine him. I think he's just there. So yeah, I mean, for being someone who would falsely make you believe that the fifth case is good at the beginning, I'll give him that. I'll give him that for helping, for being like the booster, the stage, setting the stage of the fifth case, and you know, and when he disappears, it obviously gets worse. And I don't think it's because of him. I think it's because these two also disappear when the case starts going downhill. But he has a small part to play. Larry is okay. Larry's okay. I think unlike OLDBAG, where this is the last time we see OLDBAG, it's like whatever. I think Larry is kind of pointless, like usual. Like, he's always pointless and useless, but at least it's kind of funny. And like getting to see him in the Steel Samurai obviously pisses off Edgeworth, because Edgeworth loves the Steel Samurai, so that's also kind of funny. He doesn't really need to be here. Again, if it was a new character, at least you could have a red herring, be like, oh, maybe it's this guy in the Steel Samurai costume. But you gotta bring back Larry, because, I mean, every game needs to bring back Larry, right? I don't really have much to say on him. He does help in the end, and he does have, like, the Iron Infant, which is, like, kind of funny, because you could have, like, I'm your father, I'm your father, and then Franziska and Edgeworth get mad at him, which is, like, it's nice to see people mad at Larry, right? Because he's done so much dumb stuff throughout the series. I don't know, where would I put Larry in all this? I'm gonna put him... Again, he's pointless. Like, he doesn't do anything. Like, other than the little side quest with him and Wendy OLDBAG, it's like, eh. I'm gonna put him next to OLDBAG. Actually, I think that's fair. I'm gonna put him below OLDBAG, because at least OLDBAG, kind of helps. Larry is just like he's actively just messing up, and like, yeah, his mess ups help create contradictions. Like the thing with the hot dog, I believe, was because of Larry. But it's like, I don't know. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. And lastly, the last non-major character, we have QUERCUS ALBA, and I think it would be unfair to put him in F, because I don't think he's F, but he's definitely like E. Like, I'll put him down here. It's like, I don't think it's fair to put him in F, because I think they were going for this epic boss battle where it's like you're the prosecutor, and you know, for the first time in the game you actually have to prosecute someone, and he has it's like he has such a big, like, dynamic where he's like the ambassador. You can't take him down. His extraterritorial rights. It doesn't need to go on for 3 hours. It could easily be done in like less than an hour. Like the second Lang takes away his rights, that's it. You don't need to have Kay and Lang and Franziska and Gumshoe and Larry and OLDBAG and the random guy all come in with like, objection, I have evidence to prove that you were the one that did it. We don't need to do that. There doesn't need to be a train of people, you know, objecting to him. You could sum it up in like less than an hour and it'd be fine. Like, they were going for a boss battle, which is kind of weird in the series. Like, the series is not really a series to have a boss battle, so I can kind of see what they were going for. But at the same time, considering the fact that he's the culmination of the smuggling ring, a subplot that we don't care about at all, and he kills 2 characters that we also don't care about. He kills Manny Kuchiman and the second Mask to Mask, but it's like, who cares? Who cares? And it's like, because there's so few characters, it could possibly be other, like, once you know, we take down Callisto U, it's like, oh gee, I wonder who it could be. Which, like, again, this series is not like a whodunit series, it's more of a howdunit series, which is fine if like the culprit is obvious, but it's like, why do we care about this guy? He has no emotional stakes. Him being the surprise villain, you know, old man is actually, you know, scary old man, doesn't change anything. Like, he is not comparable to Manfred von Karma or Damon Gant or whatever. He's just there. And it's like, there's just no build-up, and there's no emotional attachment to this guy. He's just the leader. He's just the final villain for final villain's sake. And I think in future games, at least the final villains have some kind of emotional connection to the characters, or, you know, you know them over the course of the game. This guy, he only appears in the finale, and he's just hands down the reason why people, I think that he's the biggest reason why people don't like this game. If his case was like 2-3 hours shorter, I feel like this game wouldn't be so hated. I think it would just be forgettable at worst. Like, it would still be like at the bottom, but at least it might beat out Apollo Justice, the game. But I think because, you know, this is like the last taste you get of the game, and it's just so drawn out, it's like, I can't put him an F in good conscience, just because, like, I can kind of tell what they were going for. And if they wanted a big boss battle where when you finally beat him, you get this moment of like, oh, thank God. So I'm gonna have to put him in E. But like, oh my gosh, he is so, it's so poorly done. I feel it's the worst finale by a long shot. And if they swapped Callisto U and him, like, you find him out right away. Like, he still does the 2 murders, but it's like, oh, we found him, the 2 murderers. You find him out, like, in the 3-4 hour mark, and then it's like, what? Wait, the person that killed your dad, she's still here, and we have proof. It's Callisto U. That would be a lot better, because at least you end the game with more of an emotional attachment. But because the emotional attachment, you know, is over 3 hours before the game actually ends, it's like, for the remainder 3 hours, it's like, why do we care? What is the point? There is no point. I don't know, man. QUERCUS ALBA, no one likes this guy. He's the biggest meme in the series just because he's so drawn out. And yeah, this whole segment where I'm talking about him is also drawn out because of that, so thank you. Thank you, QUERCUS ALBA. Now let's go to the main characters, and I'm gonna say that SHI-LONG Lang, we're gonna start from the back to front here. SHI-LONG Lang is okay. I like what they were going for, where he hates prosecutors, and he's kind of like this like police force guy, and he has an army of men, and that's a lot of fun. But the problem is we don't get time with him. We only get 2 cases with him in this game, and they are the 2 worst. They are the 2 worst ones. He's in the Blue Badger case, which is overly long and pointless, and there's no emotional attachment. And he's in the QUERCUS ALBA case, and yeah, sure, him betraying Sheena, him going for like, yeah, this is the, you know, she's my associate, but she's also a bad person, whatever. You know, he takes a bullet for it. Is pretty darn epic, but it's like, I wish we got more time with this guy. Like, I feel like, for a rival, we don't know a lot about him. In fact, the fact that he's, like, Edgeworth's rival feels so, like, forced. Just because we don't have a lot of interactions with him. Like, he calls him, like, pretty boy or something like that, but that's really about it. I like Lang. I want to like Lang, but they really needed more of him in this game. Like, they really needed to put in more of him. He also has, like, a backstory that, like, is summarized in, like, 3 words about his dad and Zheng Fa and stuff like that. Like, I like Lang, but it's like, give me more of him. Do I put him in A? I don't know. I'm gonna put him in A because, you know, even if he doesn't have a whole lot going for him, he's still, like, cool, and he's still, like, a very, like, respectable and dare I say, iconic character, but it's like, he was snubbed of screen time. He needed so much more screen time. Next up is Franziska, and like, I think Franziska was treated so poorly in this game. I think that when, you know, young Franziska is fine. I think young Franziska was great, actually. I think it really brought a lot to her character, and I think the best parts of the game is because you get to see the dynamic of young Edgeworth, young Franziska, young Von Karma, and then Gumshoe, and then Kay, and then the Judge. Like, but that's kind of cheating, because these are all characters we already know about, right? So it's like the only case we do care about is with characters that we've already met, and Kay, right? And it's like, she is like the icon of Turnabout Airlines, but she does so little in it. Like, I wish that these 4 characters here, I guess with Lang as well, that these 4 were like the main 4. Like, you have Gumshoe, the detective, and then you have Kay, the assistant, Edgeworth as the protagonist, and then you have Lang as the rival, with Franziska as like the frenemy, where sometimes she helps out and sometimes she's mean, and you have like this ongoing debacle with her and Edgeworth. But instead, you get really none of that. She's just kind of there. And when Lang shows up, it's like, alright, Franziska is not the main rival of the game. Like, I kind of wish Franziska was the main rival of the game. Like, as much as I like Lang and Franziska, I feel like they kind of take away from each other. Like, maybe if they worked together, that would have been nice, but you'd need Sheena as well, so, I mean, you'd have, like, a trio, which I guess could also work, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like Lang and Franziska take each other's roles in this game, and it like, kind of hurts. And there's a moment where Lang accuses Franziska, and Edgeworth has to defend her, which is, like, kind of nice, I guess, but I don't know, like, in this, like, I feel like they could have done so much more, considering the fact that she's one of the only 3, returning characters who appear in multiple cases in this game, her, Gumshoe, and Edgeworth, but she's just, like, so supplementary, she's so secondary, when they really could have gone a long way with her. Like, again, like, she is one of the, whenever you finish a case, or whenever you begin a case, you see, like, one of the character silhouettes, she's one of them, but she has, like, so, like, little to do in this game, and it's like, I don't know, and it's like, I wish they developed more of her character, because she sure as hell didn't really get that in the main trilogy, so just, it feels like such a waste. Like, she does get development, but it's very subtle, it's so subtle, and it's like, I wish it was just a little more, like, yes, like, you are not misinterpreting this, Franziska is getting development. We don't get that, and it's really sad. I'm gonna put her, man, I feel sad. I'm gonna put her in high B tier, because, you know, when she has her good moments, they're really good, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like she's such wasted potential, considering the fact that, again, this is Edgeworth's game. She could have been more of a presence, and when she's there, she's a joy, but it's like, give me a little more to work with, please, just a little more, Capcom. Next we have Kay Faraday, and I think that, you know, Kay's interesting because I think that, whereas Phoenix and Maya, you know, Phoenix is a very straight man kind of character, he's always, he can be sarcastic, and Maya can also be sarcastic and goofy and all that stuff. The contrast between Edgeworth being overly serious and Kay being overly childish is super, it's a fun dynamic. We don't get a whole lot of it because she's only there in, like, you know, 2.5 cases. I guess she's the young Kay in the 4th case. But it is a nice juxtaposition, and we do care about her, the thing with her dad, the thing with the Yatagarasu, the fact that Callisto Yu is the one who murdered her dad, and she wants to be the next Yatagarasu, and she has, like, Uncle Bad and all that stuff. Like, there is genuine connection, and then she has this arc of, you know, whether or not she wants to follow in her dad's footsteps. And I think that even though this game is such a mess, I think that one of the things they do pretty darn decent is Kay. I like how we have this strong emotional connection to her and the and Callisto Yu. I wish it was the actual finale of that case, so it's the actual finale of the game is Kay trying to be on her own or whatever. But for the most part, I think that it goes a long way when you have all these, you know, assistants in the series, and more often than not, they don't really have much to do other than be like this quirky teenage girl. I think Kay does do a few things, and I think she does add a lot to this game. I think that Kay and Lang are, you know, 2 of the reasons why people don't outright hate this game. So I'm gonna put her. You know what? I'm gonna put her in S tier. I know that's kind of weird to say, but when she's probably one of the best parts of that Blue Badger case, and, you know, the flashback case, she's also pretty darn great. you really do feel for her when she loses her dad. And in the 5th case, it completes her arc. I mean, I wouldn't say she's necessarily good in the 5th case, but that's because everyone is kind of just meh in that case. But at least in the finale, she has a completed arc. It's not, again, just like these 3, I feel like in any other game, it would be considered, like, weakish, but because this game is already so weak, it's like, you know what? I appreciate it. For this game, I'll give you guys S tier. Next up, we have Edgeworth, and this might, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think Edgeworth is not that good in this game. He's just kind of there. He's a pinball protagonist. You know, what I like is the contrast between the wacky scenarios and the airplane and the ugly suitcase and the blue badger and you know, Gumshoe and the brownie, or the Swiss roll and all that stuff, and that's nice, but he doesn't have a whole lot of stake in it. You kind of get a little hint of that with Manfred von Karma in the flashback case, but for the most part, he has no emotional attachment. Like, all these people are just going through the motions. He's just kind of the enabler, the vanilla protagonist who's just there watching other people develop. He doesn't have a whole lot of development himself. I like the juxtaposition, but at the same time, it's like, I wouldn't put him in S, because this might be the one or 2 or 3 games in the series, which are all ranked low for, I think, this very reason, where the protagonist doesn't really change, because there's not much to change. He meets new people, which is fun, but, I mean, you know, that's about it. He just meets new people, he gets put in wacky scenarios, and if, you know, if that floats your boat, that's okay, but I mean, I think that this game could have easily been, Marvin Grossberg investigations, and it wouldn't have changed anything other than, I guess, the character dynamics. So for the character dynamics, I'd still put him in A, but it's like, his role in the plot is so secondary. It's like, yeah, his connection to Manfred von Karma kind of fuels the AMANOs, but it's like, it's like 2 sentences, and then the stuff with Manfred von Karma doesn't really go anywhere, and like everything else is more K's story, right? It's more K's story. It's really just, this game was for the Edgeworth personality, not so much the Edgeworth backstory and character. I feel like the next game is a lot better with the Edgeworth's character. So yeah, sorry, considering you're the main character of the game, you're only going in A tier. His dynamics are funny, but I mean, there's not a lot to go off. And then there's Gumshoe, who I think that Gumshoe, and this is kind of cheating because this is a lot to do with his role in the trilogy. I think Gumshoe is probably here. I think that he also doesn't have a lot to do, but we do get to see his character flourish. Whereas Edgeworth is kind of inconsistent in the flashback case. At least Gumshoe is his same old self. He helps the kids. He helps Kay. He helps Franziska. He helps Edgeworth. He's just this great big brother kind of character. He's very helpful. In fact, you know, I'm beginning to realize that in the 3rd case, he kind of gets taken away, and maybe that's why it's not as well liked. I want to see the trio of Edgeworth, Kay, and Gummy all work together. In the final case, he has a little bit to do. He has a few hero moments here and there, and like he does care about Maggie. It's like, I don't know, the Gumshoe character is very simple, but because of that, it's very, very hard to mess up. He's just this lovable himbo, and I think that, again, while he doesn't have a whole lot of presence, just the hero moments that we get in every game. Gumshoe's like has hero moments in every game, but I feel like we get a few more hero moments than usual here, and also just the fact that he cares so much about Kay and Edgeworth and Franziska, even though they kind of abuse him, makes him such an endearing character. And it's also just the heartbreak he feels, even though it's not a whole lot of heartbreak, it's just a few lines, when Detective Bad turns out, you know, to be the Yadagarasu, and he's putting himself in jail. It's like, dude, this Gumshoe guy, you do care? I feel like people in this game, they care about Gumshoe more than they care about Edgeworth. Because Edgeworth is so nothing in this game, but at least Gumshoe has, like, something kind of resembling character traits, right? Because, again, it's very hard to mess up Gumshoe. So yeah, I think that, I don't know. He's never like the most relevant, but I'd say that this game is probably when he's like maybe the second or third most relevant Gumshoe out of the 5 games he appears in. And I think, you know what, you can't go wrong with Gumshoe. You really can't go wrong with him. So yeah, here's my ranking of the characters in Investigations 1. I hope you all enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a long one, but I do have a lot to say about this game, and thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my opinions. See you guys next time!